Hi guys, I hope you're good. Welcome to another day. My name is Orich Kochi and I'm going to go through with you to another reaction, another football reaction. Once again, like, subscribe, make sure you comment, leave a comment on the video and yeah, let's interact guys and let's get through to it. And as we go to it guys, it was a very beautiful game. Sundowns versus Stellenbosch was quite normal. It was quite normal in terms of what it entailed. Um, Generally, from what I saw in the first half, Sundowns generally stuck to the same, what they've always done, played in the 4-2-3-1. Obviously, played Mudiba on the left back, normal back for Grant and Damani, and Mudau, the strongest team. The only alteration obviously was the fact that they played Allende and Mukwen in the middle field. They played Salez as a right winger, played Matthews as a left winger, and then they played in Tiki Tabele as a number 10, and then they played obviously Rinas. So that was the two changes that they made to the game from the previous one that they made, but ultimately a very strong lineup as normal from Sundowns. And then you go to Cape Town City, also I think one of their better teams, one of the first teams. The only thing that they changed, obviously they played Palace and Chapa in the middle field. They played Mohodopong as a striker. They played different titles as a right winger, like Elisha Pili as a left winger. And when you looked at the game and you looked at what it entailed, it was generally a very normal game in essence. When you looked at the first half, Sundowns obviously had more of the possession in the first half. They kept the ball, normal service resumed, moved the ball very well in between the lines. One thing that if you notice from the game when you looked at it from the onset is the fact that they're building up structure. Sundowns are a very good team when it comes to building up schemes. They generally changed because generally you see Sundowns, they build up with the two, and then obviously you find Ronwen comes and joins it, and then it comes a three at the back, and then you find that you'll find sometimes, depending on what they want, you'll find it will either sometimes be them from the first 15-20 minutes. There's generally built in a three where you would find Mudao on the right wing back inverting, and then you'd find Ndamani moving towards the left back side, and then you'd find Grant Kekana in the middle part of it, and then they'd build into three. And sometimes they'd switch it up. If you've noticed, you would also see sometimes Ronwen, sometimes they'd push up, they'd push Ndamani back to the left wing back on the left hand side, and then you'd find sometimes Ronwen joining and playing as extra center back to Grant, and then you'd find Mudau stretching the ball in the right. So they would switch. And then generally one thing I like about Sundowns is that you find that they're true central midfielders, which is either Ayende or Mukwena. They don't come square when it comes to building up the game. Generally they come parallel to each other. One will come, if it's Ayende, one will come, and then they will occupy a certain space in the middle field. They will switch. So it gives different teams different problems. And then as the game progressed, even when they were building up, if you noticed, they would also, they inverted Aubrey in the middle field, into the middle field, and then they put Matthews on the line, so that every single time Ndamane placed that ball into the half space, into the middle field, which he was doing to break the lines, or if they were playing the ball out wide, you'd find that Matthews would trap into the field, or trap inside, or move off, or pass. They would pass that ball for him to get inside, and then that moved into the. If you looked at it, it was similarly to the goal that they scored, because Matthews stayed on the line. Modiba was inverted inside to the field, inside to the middle field, and then he got inside, and then he passed the ball. The right winger for Stellenbosch did not track the run of Modiba. he was taken by the game, and then he lost concentration, and then he went to Matthews instead of switching and going with the runner, which was Modiba. So because he focused on that, the switch up with Amenyana from Stellenbosch wasn't good. So then they moved that ball to Modiba. Modiba closed the ball, and then he passed it into the midfield in Sabeleng and Sigi Sabeleng and Sales, which was one of the biggest things. 1-2 quickly, and then I think the defensive structure from Stellenbosch was quite stretched. There wasn't enough communication, I think, between Palace and Moloisane. I think Moloisane got attracted by the ball, and then he wanted to touch Moloisane, and then from there was ball watching, quick 1-2, and then obviously, as you saw, Nsabeleng scored the goal. And I think it was normal because Sundowns was moving the balls very good into the lines. I really liked the rotations, the way that Ndaman was always making that pass in between the lines, something that is very good, and I've seen him develop over the season when he's come to Sundowns. Very good in playing that line breaking pass into the midfield, where it just generally turns the opposition midfield straight, and then you find Sundowns immediately, because they're so good in keeping the ball, they immediately are attacking the defense. Obviously, if you've noticed, when they're playing, Arturo Sales drops into the midfield, places more of a number 10 to support the number 10, and then you find that more generally Mudau holds the line on the outside with. So the characteristics of how they play is different, because Modiba drops into the midfield on the one side, and then you find Matthews also on the line, because he knows how to stretch. He's very skillful. His understanding of space is very good also, but his biggest strength is when you put him 1 versus 1 against the defender. He knows how to shake him, he knows how to run in behind. Obviously, his final ball is quite hit and miss, but in generally, his impact and his impact in the game is always there, because he causes a lot of issues for opposition teams. Combination between Sabeleng, from what I noticed in Sabeleng, was dropping very well into the pockets, combining a lot with Arthur Celeste. Sundowns keep the ball. They didn't create so many chances, clear-cut chances. They created chances, but not at the volume that you would expect of Sundowns. The ball was breaking down quite easily when they got to the final third. The final pass wasn't as good as it needed to be, because as much as they were moving the ball very well from their back to the midfield, the ball, as soon as the ball got to the front line, it was either there was misplaced pass, the combinations were not as crispy as they would do, even though generally they do it at such a high volume. The box entries are always high, but because of the final pass and maybe miscommunication, they just didn't create in the amount of chances that they could. And just because of that, you notice that Reyners was also very quiet in the game, because he didn't get a lot of service that you would normally get. Generally, Sundowns, they're very good at playing in between the half spaces, or running in that half space between the opposition right back and the centre back side, where they cut the ball back for the striker to get into. But because they were not playing the ball, or they were not passing the ball with that effectiveness, they were not able to get Reyners as quickly as they could. So Reyners generally was isolated, and Mda or Moloisan were able to mark him very well. So because of that, he didn't really make much impact in the game, because he didn't get a lot of chances. So as much as it was Stellenbosch, even themselves, if you notice at the first half, they kept a solid defensive structure. And because they kept a solid defensive structure, they generally played with a front line of 3, but generally that's why they didn't also play Mavasa, because they needed fluidity. If you noticed from the game, Langalihle Pili obviously was helping the defense, and then the striker was also going back, but they would always leave Titus on the final line. He was the one who was given the license to cheat because of his pace and his speed. They wanted to use him as an outlet, so when Sundowns were attacking, and they wanted to use him against Modiba, because for all the good qualities that he has going forward, generally, obviously, you know that Modiba has a weakness defensively. So Sundowns Stellenbosch, wanted to expose that space that he was leaving behind to attack. But because of Sundowns good possession, how good Sundowns are in possession, and how their counter press is so effective. The moment that Stellenbosch were able to get the ball, they were not able to build up phases enough with the ball. So because of that, they were losing the ball so quickly. So the moment you don't have a lot of touches in the game, even when you get the ball, you quickly lose it because you don't have any rhythm within the game. So it was difficult for Stellenbosch to build any good rhythm because Sundowns, as soon as they lost the ball, Sundowns counter-press them quickly. They do not give them space. And obviously the outlets for Stellenbosch was to try and use Pili and Titus with those balls just in behind the defense for Sundowns. But Sundowns were cutting them out effectively. And because of that, Stellenbosch wasn't having a lot of time on the ball. When you looked at it, they didn't really create a lot of opportunities. Generally, it was half chances or counter-attacking opportunities. When they did have the ball or Sundowns did drop on the odd occasion, they didn't keep the ball enough in possession to be able to build any meaningful attack. So because of that, the game broke down very well. Ball broke down a lot. But it was a good game, and then as the game progressed, obviously in the second half, Sundowns continued to pile the pressure. They moved the ball. From what I noticed, they moved the ball a lot quicker than they did in the first half. When they got to the final third, their movement was sharper. They were playing the balls very quick into the final third, and because of that, they were also able to stretch and put Stellenbosch under pressure. But obviously, their final pass was also a problem. That's why you noticed that then Sundowns suddenly changed, and then they brought in Tambazwane because they were not creating as much chances as they could. The moment Tambazwane came, you could notice he was keeping hold of the ball, was making very intelligent runs in the pockets in behind the middle field of Stellenbosch, and was combining very well with Arthur Saleh. Said there was a chance that it was tight for Matthews, where they moved the ball so very well. Quick again, that type of ball from Daman into the middle field. Tambazwane takes the ball, combines quickly with Allende. They give the ball to Sales, and then Sales gives the ball to Matthews. But Matthews, obviously, I think the foot from Moloisane, it's debatable whether it was onside or not. But then he scored the goal, but it was ruled offside. If that goal had gone through, I think Sundowns would have given Sundowns that cushion that they needed. But it became very difficult, if you noticed, from there on, because the game, every single time there's a goal in the game, or there's only one goal in the game, it becomes a 50-50 game, But as the game continued, Sundowns were combining. Obviously, they were keeping the ball effectively. There was a good sequence of ball. Tambazwane obviously drifts into the left-hand side, does a back heel to Matthews. Matthews crosses the ball, but then the header wasn't the header from Mudau didn't have good direction into it, so that was the other chance. And from there on, Sundowns were keeping the ball, but they weren't really creating a lot of clear-cut chances. They were moving the ball, they were keeping possession of the ball, but the longer the game went on, and the longer Sundowns didn't score another goal, we always felt that Stellenbosch had a chance to maybe just create a half chance or a ball. They put in, as such, they changed. They brought in Mabasa, and they changed the sides. Langelihle Pili went to the right hand side, and then they changed to Devin Titus, because Devin is that type of player that stretches the game, but his involvement in the game is not that much. He's not that type of player that you will notice a lot, because he's a speedy player. He doesn't get involved in the building up schemes of a team. Doesn't get involved a lot. He's always the player that stays on the last line of the defense to stretch and to create that type of pace, because he has so much pace. He had a chance he had a chance where there was a misplaced pass from Daman in the first half that he couldn't have taken. But besides those, that you just didn't see him impact the game enough. So of course they changed the game, and yes, Stellenbosch was still pushing, and you still felt like Sundowns had a chance to score. But the longer the game went, the more you felt like it was just gonna take a moment. And you know how clinical Mabasa is. So you just felt like if Stellenbosch maybe just got a half chance, they would be able to create a goal. Sundowns Porten Saleng, but then they didn't really impact the game and not. And then in the last final 10 minutes, an uncharacteristic mistakes. Stellenbosch still played that ball in behind to turn the two center backs from Sundowns. And Ndamane, he didn't need to make do what he did. He just needed generally to just stand up. You know, the moment you get back, you get on the floor in such a 50-50 situation of that, you give the referee an decision to make. And Ndamane, because he was so focused on the ball, the fact that he didn't stand up on his feet, and then he missed that ball, and then obviously he clipped the Stellenbosch player, and obviously it became a penalty. So that was the only chance there. That's the chance that Stellenbosch were looking for. And obviously Mabasa missed the penalty, but they got a rebound and he scored. And I think that was generally what they were looking for. They still had another chance in the final minutes for Stellenbosch. They could have stolen the game, but it was obviously offside. Honestly, in terms of offsides, the assistant refereeing in terms of the offsides, when it comes to offside decisions in South Africa, generally it's always poor. And that's why I think it's so important that in South Africa we can get VAR, because we always get the little decisions wrong, or the critical decisions like just offsides. There's in a lot of games that you notice, you see that offside decisions are generally wrong because the alignment of the assistant referees to the ball on what they need to do is always poor. So, but then they get their offside, and yeah, the game ended in a draw. I think that this is a massive opportunity for Pirates. If you've noticed, the Pirates fans, the Pirates fans, obviously they were the Stellenbosch, but I think it's 2 points dropped. You know, as we knew that the league was always going to be tight. Sundowns obviously are still in the driving seat, because they still have another game in hand on Pirates. But yeah, it just throws a span in the works. Pirates Sundowns still has 6 games to go, and anything can happen if they win their game in hand. Obviously, there will be 2 points. There will be 2 points clear of Pirates. But yeah, it's still very tight. There's always gonna be ups and downs. There's still gonna be a lot of things that we see. Orlando Pirates obviously have a big game on Sunday against Kaizer Chiefs. They need to win that game to put pressure on Sundowns. But yeah, the league is heating up very well, and yeah, we still have there's still a lot of drama that we're going to see, but generally a very good game, and yeah, a nice watch. So yeah, guys, I really, in terms of the performances and there isn't any standout player that would say I really liked Ndamane, how he played in the game. If you take out the mistake, I think his passing was top class. His passing into the game was top class. I also really like Mudiba. Mudiba had a good impact in the game. Obviously, his final ball was hit and miss, but he was very, very good. Sales, before he came out of the game, was also performing very well, and yeah, he had a very, very good performance. There isn't anyone on the Stellenbosch team that I could say really had performed amazingly well. I just think it was just that type of game where players generally, I think the defense held their ground. Iminyaya from the right wing, it was not easy for him to play against Matthews. But if there was one player that I could say that held his ground, was Daka from Stellenbosch. Very good player. Very, very good player. Diminutive, good pace. Held his own against Mutao. Especially when you know that Sundowns like to play with overloads, they like to play with good combinations. But I think he really played very well. If there was one player that I could say played very well, I think Mudaga from Stellenbosch, I would say he was the best player. Then on Sundowns, I think Silas played very well, but in general, it was a very good game. And yeah, guys, this is a post-match reaction. I really hope you guys enjoy the game. This is gonna be the first of many. Keep on supporting. This is one of the many more reactions that are gonna come. Hope you guys enjoy the game. You're gonna see more from me. Enjoy evening. Thank you, guys.